Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive.
Great to be back.
Today, we're wrapping up Cal Newport's deep work. We're hitting the last two big rules. Rule #3, quit social media, and rule #4, drain the shallows.
Yeah, these are really practical ones.
Definitely. And for you, the learner, someone aiming to, absorb knowledge efficiently without getting swamped, these rules offer some solid strategies, real tools to reclaim your focus in this noisy world.
Exactly. We've dug into the examples and the advice you can actually use, like right away.
Perfect. So rule #3, quit social media. Newport kicks it off with this fascinating story about Baraton Thurston.
Right, the digital media consultant.
Yeah, back in 2013, he just disconnected. For 25 days, no Facebook, Twitter, Foursquare, not even email.
And this wasn't someone who was barely online, right? He was deep in it.
Totally. Like 59,000 Gmail conversations, 1,500 Facebook posts in the year before. Just massive numbers.
Wow. So what happened when he unplugged?
Well, what's really striking, and I think important for you, the learner, is how fast he adjusted, like within a week.
A week? That's quick.
Yeah. He said he felt less stressed about missing stuff, FOMO, and he started engaging more with the actual world around him.
Like real conversations, enjoying food without Instagramming at first.
Exactly. Riding his bike, simple things. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about what that constant connection costs us in terms of just being present and, learning deeply.
It really does. And Thurston's quick adjustment, it suggests that maybe a lot of that anxiety about being offline, it's more in our heads than reality.
A mental habit.
Yeah. You might actually find, like he did, a different kind of value when you're not constantly checking in.
But here's the kicker, the cautionary part.
Oh, there's always a catch.
Right. Despite feeling better, Thurston found it super hard to keep it up.
He went back.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
6 months later, he was tweeting like crazy again. It really shows, maybe for you, the learner, that just going cold turkey, it might not stick long term.
Those habits are powerful. The pull is strong.
Definitely. And that ties right into Newport's idea about the any benefit mindset.
Okay, explain that one.
It's how most of us justify using these tools. We find any possible upside, no matter how small.
Like, I might miss an event invite on Facebook, or it's how I keep up with distant cousins.
Exactly. Newport says that's a really kind of crude way to choose your tools, especially compared to, say, how skilled workers historically picked theirs.
The craftsman approach he talks about.
Yeah, like a blacksmith choosing a hammer or an artist selecting a brush. They weren't just looking for any benefit.
No, they were skeptical. They focused on whether the tool actually made their core job, their craft, better, significantly better.
So the lesson for you, the learner, is about being intentional, right?
Absolutely. Don't just accept a tool because it offers some tiny advantage. Ask, does this genuinely help my main goal, like learning effectively? Or does it mostly get in the way?
He uses this great analogy, actually. Forrest Pritchard, a sustainable farmer.
Farming, how does that connect?
Well, Pritchard was evaluating a new hay baler. He didn't just look at the sticker price. He looked at everything. The time it would take, the maintenance, the opportunity costs. Like, what else could he do with that time and money?
So a really deep, holistic evaluation.
Totally. The tool had to have a major positive impact on his core farming goals, and that impact had to outweigh all the negatives.
So for you, the learner, same idea. Does that social media app or that news site substantially help your learning? Enough to justify the distraction and time cost?
It's a much higher bar than just any benefit.
Definitely. Which leads nicely into applying the law of the vital few.
The 80-20 rule.
Right. Newport points to writers like Malcolm Gladwell, Michael Lewis, George Packer, successful people who mostly stay off things like Twitter.
Why? What's their reasoning?
Because the limited potential upside just doesn't outweigh the negatives, the distraction, the energy drain, things they absolutely need for their deep work.
And by extension, things you need for deep learning.
Exactly. And the fact that these examples seem rare just shows how strong that any benefit thinking is.
So the 80-20 rule. 80% of the effect comes from 20% of the causes.
Apply that to your goals. Maybe 2 or 3 key activities drive most of your progress in learning something.
Okay.
Spending time on all the other low-impact stuff, like endless scrolling, that just steals time and energy from the high-impact activities.
It's a zero-sum game, he says.
It really is. So the strategy is identify those top 2-3 activities for your main goals.
Right.
Then look at each network tool, social media, news feeds, whatever. Does it have a substantial positive impact on those key activities? Is it negative or just meh?
And only keep the ones where the positive is big and clearly outweighs the negative.
Precisely. He uses Michael Lewis again. Goal: craft, great stories, key activities, research, writing, Twitter's impact. Probably negligible, maybe even negative.
Makes sense.
Or a personal goal, like maintaining close friendships, key activities, meaningful connection, giving of yourself, quality time.
So Facebook's lightweight updates.
They don't really move the needle on those core activities, Newport argues, though he notes exceptions like, a student starting college or someone deployed overseas.
Sure, context matters.
But the framework is the key. Apply it honestly to your own situation, your own learning goals.
Okay, then he throws down a gauntlet. The 30-day social media packing party.
Sounds intense. Like decluttering your house, but for social media?
Kind of. You ban yourself from all optional social media for 30 days. Crucially, without telling anyone you're doing it.
Ooh, sneaky. Why? No announcement.
We'll get to that. But after the 30 days, you ask yourself two questions. One, would the last months have been notably better with this service?
Okay.
Two, did anyone actually care that I wasn't using it?
Brutal honesty required.
Totally. If the answer to both is no, Newport says quit it permanently. If it's ambiguous, lean towards quitting.
This really targets that fear of missing out, doesn't it?
Exactly. It replaces the fear with actual reality. And the reality for most people, he suggests, is that these platforms are way less essential than we think.
Especially for deep work, because they're designed to be addictive. Personalized info, intermittent rewards, classic conditioning.
He calls social media this shallow collectivist alternative. Like, we trade attention back and forth without creating much real value.
And by leaving quietly, you test your actual impact in that system.
Yeah. For most, he says, the lack of anyone noticing will be sobering.
A bit of a reality check about our online importance.
And a reminder that these companies, their goal is just to capture and sell our attention and data.
Right. It's a business model built on distraction.
Okay, last part of rule #3. Don't use the internet to entertain yourself.
This sounds almost impossible today.
I know, but he brings in Arnold Bennett, writing way back in 1910.
1910. What did he know about the internet?
Nothing, obviously. But Bennett was worried about how people wasted their leisure time even then. He talked about the 16 hours outside work as a day within a day.
Okay, for what?
For rigorous self-improvement, primarily reading, serious mental engagement. Something you, the learner, can definitely relate to.
So using free time intentionally for growth.
Exactly. The problem now, Newport argues, is the attention economy has filled that leisure space with, well, junk food for the brain.
Clickbait, endless scrolling on entertainment sites like HuffPost, BuzzFeed, Reddit.
Yeah. Stuff engineered to be maximally addictive, especially when you're tired after work.
And using those becomes like a cognitive crutch, right? Against boredom.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But it weakens your ability to resist distraction later when you actually need to focus for deep learning. It dulls your focus muscles.
So what's the solution? Meditate in a dark room.
No, just put more thought into your leisure. Don't default to whatever glitzy thing catches your eye online.
Fill the time with quality alternatives instead. Read a good book, learn an instrument, have a real conversation.
Exactly. And he addresses the idea that structuring relaxation ruins it. Bennett argued, and Newport agrees, that the mind wants change, not just numb rest. Meaningful activity outside work actually boosts energy and fulfillment.
Interesting. So quality leisure fuels deep work capacity.
That's the idea. Be proactive about your downtime.
Okay, that wraps up Rule 3. Heavy stuff.
Yeah, really challenging some common habits. Now, rule #4. Drain the shallows.
This is about actively fighting back against all those non-demanding tasks that eat up our day.
Right. Minimizing the shallow stuff to make room for the deep. He starts with another cool company example. 37 Signals, now Basecamp.
Oh yeah, they're known for experimenting. The 4-day work week.
That's one. But the key point wasn't just cramming 40 hours into 4 days.
No.
No, the goal was to actually do less work overall.
How did that work out?
Surprisingly well. They realized typical workdays are full of shallow stuff meetings, endless emails, random web surfing.
And busy work.
Exactly. Fewer hours forced people to be way more selective. They had to cut something.
And they cut the shallow stuff?
Disproportionately, yes. The deep, important work mostly stayed, so productivity didn't really drop.
That's fascinating. It suggests a lot of standard work hours are filler.
Pretty much. They even did another experiment, gave employees a whole month, June, just for deep work on their own projects. No meetings, no emails, zero shallow obligations.
The whole month? Wow.
And the results were amazing. They got great new ideas, better tools. Stuff that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise. Jason Fried's quote was, "How can we afford not to?"
Powerful evidence for carving out that deep work time. A lesson for you, the learner. Less shallow stuff can mean more actual progress.
Newport then talks about our limited capacity for deep work. It's not infinite.
Right. The research suggests maybe 4 hours a day max for experienced people, less for beginners.
Yeah, which makes shallow work even more dangerous because it eats into that very limited, very precious resource.
The time you need for real learning and breakthroughs.
He points out how easily a knowledge worker's day gets fragmented. Meetings, calls, appointments. Suddenly there's barely any solid block left for focused thinking.
Even for professors who you might think have more control, scheduling eats it up.
So you have to guard that deep work time fiercely.
Which leads to his next, maybe controversial strategy.
Schedule every minute of your day.
Whoa, every single minute. That sounds awful. Really restrictive.
I know, that's the first reaction. But he uses an example about people underestimating TV time. We're often on autopilot, not really aware of where the time goes.
Okay, fair point. So scheduling forces awareness.
And intentionality. Every minute gets a job. It makes you consciously decide how to spend your time rather than just reacting.
And you'll probably find some surprising time sinks that way.
Definitely. Now, he knows the schedule won't be perfect. You'll estimate wrong, things will pop up.
Right, life happens.
So you need to revise it. Be conservative with time estimates, use bigger blocks maybe. But the key isn't rigid adherence.
It's about being thoughtful about your time.
Exactly. And he even says, if you hit a deep insight while working, ignore the schedule. Follow that insight. Pursue that learning moment. You can rebuild the schedule later.
Ah, so it's structure with flexibility. The structure ensures you make time for deep work, but you can adapt when inspiration strikes.
Right. It respects your time, stops you from letting random whims or emails dictate your day.
Okay, that makes more sense than just robotic scheduling.
Next up, quantify the depth of every activity.
So figuring out what's actually shallow versus deep, because it's not always clear.
Not always. Editing an article, building a presentation, attending a meeting. Could be deep, could be shallow.
So how do you tell?
He gives a definition. Shallow work is non-cognitively demanding, logistical, often done distracted, creates little new value, easy to replicate.
Really?
And the key question to ask yourself about any task is, how much focused attention does this need? If I got distracted, would the quality suffer significantly?
High focus needed deep. Low focus needed shallow.
Pretty much. And the goal is obviously to bias your time towards the deep stuff. Minimize the shallow, even if it feels productive, like clearing an inbox.
A practical filter for you, the learner, to evaluate your tasks.
Then, a potentially awkward one, ask your boss for a shallow work budget.
Uh-oh. How does that work?
You literally have a conversation. What percentage of my time should I be spending on shallow work? First, you have to agree on what shallow and deep mean in your context.
Okay, defining terms is crucial.
Then you agree on a percentage, and you try to stick to it.
What's the benefit?
It creates implicit support for prioritizing deep work. Makes it easier to say no to less critical shallow tasks. And it makes the total drain of shallow work visible.
I can see that. If you're self-employed, you ask yourself that question.
Exactly. It's about setting boundaries and valuing focus.
Makes sense.
Next is fixed schedule productivity. Basically, finish your work by a set time like 5:30 p.m. and stick to it.
Every day, even in demanding fields.
Newport argues yes. He uses himself as an example. In academia, rarely works nights or weekends, but is highly productive.
How? That seems counterintuitive in academia.
He contrasts himself with a hypothetical Tom, who's in the office 12 hours, but only gets 1.5 hours of real research done. It's about efficiency, not just hours logged.
So working smarter, not longer.
He also cites Ratika Nagpal at Harvard, who set a 50-hour week limit, protected her happiness, and still got tenure quickly.
How did she manage that?
By being ruthless about shallow commitments, saying no a lot, limiting travel, managing time carefully.
So the fixed schedule forces you to cut the fluff.
Exactly. It creates a scarcity mindset with your time. You have to prioritize the deep work and find efficient ways to handle the rest, or just jettison it.
This challenges that always-on work culture, doesn't it? Like expecting instant email replies at 9 p.m.
Absolutely. It's a meta habit, he says, that reorients everything towards depth.
Okay, final section of Rule 4. Become hard to reach.
Tackling the email beast.
The ultimate shallow work time suck for many.
Totally. That feeling you have to be constantly available, instantly responsive.
Newport says.
Pretty much. He suggests things like sender filters, make it harder for people to just fire off an email to you without thinking.
How? Like make them fill out a form first.
Could be.
Yeah.
He gives his own example. No general email on his website, specific contacts for specific things, maybe an email address for interesting inquiries only, with a clear note saying he might not reply.
Wow, that takes some nerve.
But the benefit, less time in the inbox, and it resets expectations. You're not obligated to reply to everything.
Psychologically freeing, I bet. He mentions other examples too, right? Consultants with FAQs or small fees.
Yeah, Clay Herbert. Or Antonio Centino, who had people post questions publicly first. Different ways to filter.
The goal is reducing the incoming flood.
And then tip #2 for email, do more work when you send or reply.
Wait, more work? Isn't that counterproductive?
Not necessarily. It's about avoiding those endless back and forth chains for simple things.
The email ping pong.
Exactly. Instead of a quick, vague reply, figure out the underlying project or question. What's the process needed to resolve this efficiently with the fewest possible messages?
Oh, okay.
Then your reply outlines that process. Here's the project, here's where we are, here's the next step, here's what I need from you or what I'll do next.
So you invest more upfront in one email to prevent 5 more later.
Precisely. It closes the loop, reduces mental clutter, might feel slower initially, but saves time and focus overall.
Got it. Process-centric email.
And finally, tip #3, maybe the most radical.
Don't tell me.
Don't respond.
What's in their emails?
Well, selectively. He observed academics at MIT whose default was often not to respond.
Really? Why?
Their philosophy basically was,
Yeah.
it's the sender's job to make it clear why a reply is worthwhile and to make it easy for the receiver.
So if the email is vague, demanding, or irrelevant?
Just delete it or archive it, no reply needed. He gives examples of bad emails versus better ones that respect the receiver's time.
So you apply some rules before replying.
Yeah, the professorial email sorting rules. Is my reply essential for them? Will it make a real difference? Am I the best person, or should someone else handle it?
If the answer is no to those.
Consider not responding. He admits it's uncomfortable, breaks convention, might have minor negative consequences sometimes, but that's okay.
People adjust their expectations eventually.
That's the idea. And it drastically cuts down the email you have to process and send.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to take in for Rule 4.
Definitely. So those are the final 2 rules from deep work. Quit social media, drain the shallows. They're really concrete strategies, aren't they?
Absolutely. Not just theory. Actionable steps for anyone, especially you, the learner, wanting to get serious about focus.
Taking control of your attention, pushing back against the constant distractions. That seems to be the core message.
Yeah, choosing the tools and habits that actually serve your goals and actively minimizing the shallow stuff that pulls you away from deep learning and real achievement.
So that wraps up our deep dive into Cal Newport's book. We really hope you, the learner, found these discussions useful.
Hopefully it sparks some ideas you can try out in your own efforts to learn and work more deeply.
Maybe think about which strategy from today, or from the whole book, resonates most with you. What's one small change you could make to protect your focus? It's those intentional choices that build up.
Definitely. It's an ongoing practice.
Well, thanks for joining us on this exploration of deep work. Stay tuned for more deep dives into other fascinating topics to help you learn and grow.
Thanks, everyone.